straight night, part 2 of their home-and-home series. This one looked like it was all but over late in the fourth quarter here, Brian. We're going to pick this one up with 4 minutes left. OKC up 14 at this point. Anthony Edwards turns it over. The Thunder coming back the other way. OKC now leads by 16. In the last 20 seasons, teams are 1-9,249 when trailing like that with less.
Ant went to the bench. It was sort of a white flag, I thought.
Right, and the Timberwolves, by the way, they were involved the last time a comeback like this happened. They were on the wrong side of it. The Kings, they erased a 17-point deficit in the final 3 minutes to beat the Timberwolves. Would history repeat itself? Well, the Timberwolves, they could not be contained. Rob Dillingham, Shams, with Anthony Edwards on the bench, cuts the lead to 5.
The Young Bucks are stepping up.
And then Jaden McDaniels drives, finishes the layup, plus the foul. After the free throw, Tim McMahon, game tied at 1:21 here. So the next Oklahoma City possession, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, usually he's money on this, but he misses the floater. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets the rebound, goes coast to coast, but can't get the game winner to go. So we would send it to overtime. Minnesota, Tim, would go on a 16-0 run.
And Ant was watching the whole thing, nursing a little sore calf on the bench during that stretch.
Well, they decided to put him back in when they thought that this game wasn't a white flag one anymore. Naz Reid, not quite. Don't worry, though. He gets another chance here.
Helped by a guy off the bench.
Great pass by Ant.
Naz Reid can't quite get that one to go there. A little bit of a mess, but Reid would make both free throws here to take the lead here. But this was the game-sealing play. SGA blocked by Anthony Edwards.
All that matters.
Terrence Shannon Jr. controls the rebound and is fouled after this. Just another look at this game-saving block here by Edwards. Shannon would make both free throws. So then 6 seconds left here. The Thunder down by 3. Edwards picks up SGA. Forces a really tough shot here that's no good, so Minnesota completes the comeback, 131-128, one of the best comebacks I have ever seen. But Ant, you gotta remember, my friend, the mic is hot.
Gentlemen, we're on live now. We're on air now, Ant. Just tied the largest comeback in team's history. It was the biggest team win we have seen to take us through this one.
Ask them. I mean, them boys played. I can't say what they played, but they played their butt off.
We took our foot off the pedal, obviously, defensively especially. Offensively, they were trapping me at half court, and we got a lot of good looks. They just didn't go in. And that's basketball.
Shout out to Finchie, man. He made a great adjustment as far as just going to blitz Shai. I mean, because that's what they did to me all night. So they got a taste of their own medicine.
That was just tremendous top to bottom post-game sound. Teams had lost over 1,500 consecutive games when trailing by 24 plus in the fourth quarter before the Timberwolves comeback last night. Tim Legler, he's joining us now. This type of comeback, Tim, is a shock against any team, but especially the Thunder. They've been so dominant in fourth quarters. Legs, what impressed you the most last night?
Well, all right, a couple things. Let's talk about Minnesota's perspective first. I think just the fact they kept playing. I mean, a lot of teams, second night back-to-back, down 20 on the road in the fourth quarter against that team, you're taking everybody out, not just Anthony Edwards. So the fact that they just kept playing, most teams wouldn't. And that trap we talked about was really more like an extended 2-2-1 zone where those top two guys were just absolutely blitzing Shai at half court. They missed a bunch of shots on the wings. You got to make some of those shots and convert them. I thought the defensive adjustment was critical. But now let's look at it from Oklahoma City's standpoint. And where did they go wrong? To me, it was the fouling. They put Minnesota on the line 14 times in the fourth quarter, 8 more times in overtime. That's 22 free throws in 17 minutes. That's really where this went off the rails for Oklahoma City because they allowed Minnesota to score without the clock running and enabled them to set that defense. So to me, the fouling was very uncharacteristic of their defense. I think that's what Shai was alluding to.
Yeah, whenever you see a collapse, you often see a couple of things different things happen. Obviously, the fouling. Terrence Shannon, their rookie, played some of the best minutes of his career.
Dillingham, too.
But I will say, Dillingham for sure. I will say that the takeaway from this game is that zone defense that the Wolves brought out. It was incredibly impressive. And the trapping. And now I would say that teams that are getting ready to play the Thunder going forward are going to install that because that was something that they struggled with. And I would just say for Minnesota, while this is essentially a one-off game, like you're not going to see this one out of every 9,000 times or whatever you said. The Timberwolves are going to get as far as their defense takes them.
Right.
Last year, they were the top defensive team in the league, and they were essentially the top seed in the West. This year, their defense has slid, and they've slid down the rankings. They've had injuries, of course. But Minnesota's way to get back to the top of the West is playing great defense, and even if it's not in scramble mode like they were last night.
And then after that game, go ahead, Shams.
Yeah, I think the positive that I've taken from Minnesota the last several weeks, you've been without Julius Randle, been without Dante DiVincenzo. They've relied on 3 rookies, really first-year players to play big roles. That's Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. the last few weeks. And then obviously Jalen Clark, he started last night. He's been big for them as well. And when I look at those 3 guys, they're young, they bring versatility, they allow them to play zone defense. This was a veteran-laden team last year. They played all their vets. And Chris Finch is known as a guy that really relies on his vets. Now he's got an infusion of young guys that he can rely on while they wait on the arrivals of Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, both day-to-day right now.
Day-to-day, okay.
And the Timberwolves are a team, they struggle to protect big leads in the fourth quarter. They're damn good at rallying, though. This is some new guys in the mix there. This Timberwolves team, though, pulled off one of the most amazing comebacks in NBA playoff history last year, coming back from 20-some-odd down in a Game 7 in Denver to eliminate the defending champs. And I ran into the Chris Finch, the Timberwolves coach.
The Chris Finch.
Yeah, I ran into him this morning. They're in L.A. now.
Yep.
You know, he's floating a little bit. He said, I probably waited a little bit too long to throw the trap at SGA. I said, no, I think you got to it just in time.
Right.
And then Anthony Edwards got back in the game after nursing that calf just in time. And this is one of the most amazing blocks that probably you will see all season long. The second most impressive, most spectacular defensive play of Anthony Edwards' career, behind only that chase down block where the guy sealed the win in Indiana last year, hit his head on the rim with this chase
Just in
down
case you
block.
forgot.
Yeah, this one. Any chance to show this video, we
explosion
absolutely
off the
will.
ground is still unbelievable a year later.
And as Finchy told me, Ant has a way of just taking it to another gear.
Yep.
In moments like this, you saw that last night, and certainly that is Exhibit A right there.
And they're going to need it because Ant said this has been a little bit of a roller coaster season for them. They want to get back to the Western Conference Final, and so far this hasn't been the clear Western Conference Final looking team, but perhaps last night can serve as a little bit of a spark plug for them. That was the game of the night. But this evening, we have a monster matchup right across the street from us. Tonight, it marks the first of 2 times that Luka will face the Mavericks here. And history tells us that a motivated Luka is a scary thing. You remember this? Back in 2020 in the bubble versus the Clippers, they roughed up Luka a little bit earlier in the series, right? But then, in Game 4, Luka had 43 points, 13 assists, and 17 rebounds en route to this iconic game-winning shot to tie up the series. And then 2 years later, Luka, down 3-2 to the Suns, had the, everyone acting tough when they're up. The Mavs ended up taking the series in 7, and it was the birth of the Luka Booker meme seen around the world. A little sort of smirk that you see right there. And then last season, Luka taking things personally versus Rudy Gobert and the Wolves. Takes a hard foul, then later in the game, hits the game winner, and absolutely lets Rudy hear it. The Mavs took the series in 5. So, McMahon, given that that's what we've seen from Luka here in some revenge games, what do you expect from him tonight?
I think he's going to speak some of that Slovenian that he let Rudy Gobert hear. He's going
Jeza. That's the Slovenian for wrath. I looked it up.
Oh, I was going to say, can we say that on television? Okay.
I know Pivo's Slovenian for beer. He might enjoy a couple after this if he has the kind of performance I think he might have tonight. Hell hath no wrath like a motivated Luka Doncic, and he is going to have something to prove to the Mavericks. He tends to find somebody in the stands to bark at, to target.
Yeah.
We will see if Nico Harrison, the Mavs GM, decides to sit in the stands today. If he does, I think there will be a one-sided conversation flowing toward him throughout the course of this game.
That could certainly be something that we're all keeping an eye on. And then Luka coming off really his best game in a Lakers uniform here against the Denver Nuggets legs. What are you most looking for from Luka in this one?
Well, look, the first thing you got to know about Luka, he's the only guy in the league that does a heat check the first time up the floor. That's just who Luka is, right? He does that every single night out of layup lines. So I think he's going to do that again. He's going to test the temperature. If that thermometer runs hot and he hits a couple early, yeah, I think you're right. I think Luka then might start to get in the mindset of doing something big, putting up a big number against them. But there's no guarantee that's going to happen. I mean, you got to give the guy a little bit of slack, considering how much time he missed, and he hasn't played that many games. I think the one that's going to matter more, obviously, is when they return in April to Dallas. That's the night And he wants AD out there. He wants a fully healthy Mavericks team. He wants Nico Harrison sitting there. He wants the owner's box there. He wants all of that there. The fan base probably cheering him on. So tonight, yeah, it's going to be something, but nothing compared to what we're going to see in April.
I think it's going to happen tonight, too. I think it's going to happen right away. I once saw Luka in the World Cup walk from one end of the court to the other to curse out the FIBA Secretary General in Spanish, okay? If Nico is in the bowl, McMahon is right, he's going to find him. And normally I would say in a revenge game like this, I wouldn't expect there to be them bending over backwards to set their player up. But right now the Lakers are trying to install a system where Luka is at the centerpiece, does have the ball in his hands, and is making their whole offense come off of him. So I think it marries up perfectly for Luka to try to have an enormous game tonight.
Do you guys think tonight's the last night he's really going to be thinking about this trade? Because I think it's still on the top of his mind. It's still something that he thinks about. Maybe he gets motivation from it. I don't know what it is. But I do think as time goes on, he's going to keep getting repetition, get a rhythm in Los Angeles. I think he's doing the best he can right now to embrace being in LA, playing for the Lakers. It's something that he has to think about on a daily basis. But he's doing the best he can right now. But I don't know. Does he snap out of it? I don't know.
Listen, let me assure you of this. Luka Doncic can hold a grudge for a long, long time, and he will hold one against the Mavericks organization for the rest of his career.
I think he's going to enjoy facing Kyrie Irving. I think that could be something that is fun that we see there. But yeah, in terms of the organization, I think you have been calling for this game for a while. You thought that they needed this game for Luka to break out. He didn't. All he needed to face was Denver. And now we get the encore in this one tonight. Hey, still to come. Ball. Don't look now, but going into last night, the Pistons, they're doing something they haven't done in a decade. They came into the evening on a 6-game winning streak, and here's how last night went. Sizzling, that's what he said, right, Brian? Sizzling Cade Cunningham
Don't touch
here.
him.
Starting to warm up. Pistons, they trail by 1. And then right here, Cade knocks down another 3. Brian, he's recorded his 14th half this season with at least 10 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's tied with Giannis for 3rd place in that category. Pistons lead 2
I was talking to a coach who just coached against him recently, and they're like, you can't believe how strong this guy is.
Jalen Duren, nice lob there.
How big Jalen Duren is. He's huge.
And look, the crowd just loving it. And then 2 minutes left in the third. Pistons lead by 1. Asar Thompson cuts to the rim, dunks on Derrick Jones Jr. Pistons extending their lead. But look at this block here from Thompson. Oof.
Him and a man, just
major
next-level
athletes. Major athletes.
What a play. He knocks the ball, hits himself in the face on the way back down. 1:12 to go in the game. Pistons up 7. Cade Cunningham knocks down
That's
the
finesse. They even need strength
3.
for that.
32 points, 7 assists, 9 rebounds. Here's Cade Cunningham after the win.
I think, we still feel like we have to earn the league's respect, and we do still have to earn the league's respect. So every night you have to come with it. You have to play with that grit. You have to play with that sense of urgency. And that's something I think we've gotten better and better as the seasons went on, is maintaining that sense of urgency each game or finding it within the game. And so, that's the main reason why we've been able to stay afloat.
Well, another reason is Cade taking a leap this year, increasing his averages and points, rebounds, assists from last season. He's also on pace to be the first player to average 25 points and 9 assists in a season in Pistons history. So, Legs, this Pistons team, they're looking real here. It's led by all-star Cade Cunningham. What's the biggest difference you've seen in his game this year versus years past?
Well, I think Cade Cunningham represents the refinement for this group, right? He's the polish, because you've got a bunch of athletes, you've got a bunch of dogs, you got guys that like to defend and run and get out, and they're all still developing their skills. He represents a guy that's much further down that path. So now when they run onto the floor, they know they've got a guy that on any given night can be the best player on the court. That's what Cade Cunningham represents. Windy talked about his strength, just his size in general at the guard spot and the way he plays. You can't really get him off balance. You can't get him to do anything before he's ready to. That just represents a level of calm at that position, and he's got the ability to take over games as a scorer. And this team now is no longer obviously a really good story. Dare we say it? The Detroit Pistons are a really good team we're there, man. They're a 6th seed in the East. They're actually within sight of the 4 spot.
Yeah.
And this is a team that last year was leading SportsCenter because we wanted to see if the losing streak was still alive.
Right.
That's where we're at with this group.
I would sum it up like this. The 2 previous seasons, they won a combined 31 games. They've already won 32 games already just this year. So that's one of the longest winning streaks in the league. They've won 7 straight. Let's get to one of the longest losing streaks in the league. The Sixers, they lost their 8th straight. And Brian, what had happened in this one was the 76ers in action without Joel Embiid in this game against the Chicago Bulls.
I just want to point something out. The Bulls have made several trades in the last month that could be defined as tanking trades. I just want to point that out as we watch this unfold.
Let's watch it unfold here. To later in the second we go. Check the score on this play. I don't know what happened here.
Boink.
That's exactly right.
There was nothing good about it. I'll just leave it at that.
So, to the third we go, where it really didn't get any better here. Kobe White kicks it out. And again, Chicago just extending their lead.
Keep watching
in the
that
city
score
of brotherly
and watch
love.
what happens on this score.
Kobe White drives, dunks, 104-69.
It got
And
worse.
Fans can't
That little
believe
kid
what they're
certainly
seeing.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, look at that score.
107-73. Again, it feels like they're giving up, and understandably so when you look at the game and the final score. So the Sixers, 8-game losing streak. That's the team's longest in the last 8 seasons since the end of the process years in Philadelphia. Their latest loss, it drops them 2.5 games back of the Bulls for the final play-in spot. So here's Paul George when asked if the Sixers could still make a playoff run.
We just don't have, the habits of a champion or a playoff contending team would have. So, to be honest, right now it's a little far-fetched. All we can do is work hard and try to just keep going for one another. But we've shown no signs of forget championship, but a playoff contending. We got to want to do it. It's what it comes down to. You got to want to do it. Either you commit to put your body on the line or you don't.
All right, so this has been a disaster of a season for the 76ers here. And Brian, you've mapped out how they should be focusing on keeping their top 6 protected pick here. Joel Embiid didn't play in this game. Have we seen the last of Embiid this season, Shams?
Malika, everything is on the table for the Philadelphia 76ers right now. My understanding is Joel Embiid and the 76ers are consulting with doctors. They're meeting with dozens of specialists as we speak right now to figure out exactly how they're going to move forward with that troublesome left knee. The reality for the Sixers is Joel Embiid and Paul George just aren't right. They haven't been healthy. They haven't been healthy for quite some time. Even before the All-Star break, I reported that Paul George needed 4 to 5 games. Every single game before playing, he needed pain-killing injections. So that's where he's been at for weeks. Joel Embiid, we see it with the eye test where he's at with his play as well. And for any team in the NBA, when you're top 1 and 2 player or 1 and 3 player, whatever the case may be, Joel Embiid obviously is the franchise cornerstone. When a guy like that looks as labored as he does, you have to find answers, and that's what the Sixers and Embiid are doing right now.
So they've obviously had misfortune with injury, not only with Joel Embiid, but as Sham said, with Paul George, with Jared McCain, their promising rookie, with guys like Andre Drummond. Certainly you've seen injury affect them. But since January 1st, they're dead last in league in defense. So this is a team that even when they've had their 3 guys, have not shown consistent effort. And so what you'd like to hope if you're a 76er fan is that what we're seeing right now is rock bottom and that they can start making some moves that can correct this situation. It's not going to correct itself this year, but if you can have some moves that are positive in the nature, assure yourself keeping that draft pick, assure Joel Embiid can be back next year, you can pivot. And we could be having a Detroit Pistons conversation about the 76ers 365 days from now.
Tim, in 30 seconds here, who's to blame, do you think, for this disappointing season?
I didn't know if it was me or McMahon's. All right, so
just you.
Okay. Listen, it's. I don't know that you can put it at the feet of any one particular entity. The whole thing hinges on Joel Embiid's health. That's what this is about. If Joel Embiid is healthy, they're still winning games, regardless of Paul George's injuries, regardless if you think he's performed up to par, and all of the other things that have gone wrong. If Joel Embiid is healthy, it's a massive difference maker. He can't stay on the court, and he can't stay healthy. And the real painful thing about this is you think about, they already went through all of this. You remember the 5 years when they basically weren't trying to win? It led to a Joel Embiid. It's supposed to have led to championships at some point. And now you look at the uncertainty of this guy, his future. Physically, this is rock bottom. There's no question about it. But again, it's Embiid first and his health before you really start questioning all the other stuff. That has to come first.
And right now, Shams is saying that everything's still on the table as they continue to assess Joel Embiid. They've thrived in the 80 minutes Luka and LeBron have shared the floor this season. They've scored at a pace of a top 5 offense. They've defended better than the league best Thunder. So joining us now, our reporter covering the Lakers, Dave McMenamin. Dave, you have a story up on ESPN.com right now that details what life has been like for Luka since this trade. What have the last 3 weeks been like for Doncic?
Malik, it's been a whirlwind. Obviously, he had to uproot his life. It's been his entire career in Dallas before that trade on February 1st. He's actually awoken from his sleep by an associate telling him that he was being traded, and it's only been kind of nonstop since there. But there's a couple parts of that story I'd like to talk about. One, some of the stuff coming out from Dallas about Doncic's conditioning and weight and work habits. A source close to Luka told me that's only, quote, awakened a beast inside of him as he's approached his training and his regimen to try to integrate himself to the Lakers. Also, I've spoke to LeBron one-on-one for this story, and he told me, one, he's been working in training, playing off the ball for years, working on his three-point shot to be able to sync up with someone like Luka. And two, he said, he's trying to do whatever Luka needs to feel comfortable. That means on the court, that means off the court. And if the Denver game is any indication, Luka's starting to feel pretty darn comfortable.
Yeah, it was his best game in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform, and it couldn't have come at a better time because now we get to see that revenge game possibly. Dave McMenamin, thank you so very much for stopping by NBA Today. So the Mavericks, they will be without a host of players in this game. Anthony Davis won't play. He'll miss his 6th straight game with that strained adductor. And with that, we welcome back in Tim McMahon, who covers the Dallas Mavericks for us. Howdy, Tim. I'm curious here, what are the Mavs bracing for? If Dave just reported that people around Luka say a beast has been awoken here.
Yeah, they're embracing for the wrath of Luka. They're embracing for the guy that they've seen go into visiting arenas with a point to prove as recently as Game 5 to close out the Western Conference Finals in Minnesota, where he ripped the heart out of an entire franchise. And I asked one of their assistant coaches, hey, you got a game plan for Luka? He made a cross, he clasped his hands, and he looked towards the heavens. Kind of joking. But they expect the best of Luka, emotion from Luka. And, when I asked Kyrie about it the other day, he talked about wanting to, there will be emotion, but wanting to make sure that he and his teammates keep what he calls a deep focus. The Mavericks can't get caught up in the emotion of this. Yeah. They've got to focus. They know they've got their hands full.
And with the exception of that Golden State game, the Mavericks, even though they're shorthanded, they've been playing pretty good basketball as of late. They're hoping to get back to that tonight, but it's going to be tough against Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers. Tim McMahon, adios amigo. Luka had his first standout game Saturday in Denver, going for 32 points and 10 boards, and the Lakers win. That's after he averaged under 15 a game during his first 3 games with Los Angeles. So, Legs, what did Luka figure out here against the Nuggets?
Well, I think it's what they figured out collectively, which is that Luka Doncic has to be the guy that's the primary ball handler. And it just makes sense because the guy that's in this situation, the guy that's off the ball has to be willing to cut or run. That's what LeBron James is more willing to do. Luka likes to operate with the rhythm of having the ball in his hands, crossing half court, being able to dissect defenses, and then he's going to beat you whatever the play requires. As a scorer, he can do that for long stretches in games, or he can be the guy that can give LeBron James probably the easiest baskets he's had in his career, not only with the runouts, but even in the half-court stuff. The way he delivers the ball with the accuracy and velocity he does is going to give LeBron James more side on the weak side. So I just think it's the only way it can really operate is for Luka to have the ball more often.
Yeah, they want to make it as easy as possible on him, so let him play his style of basketball, and then let Luka's presence aid LeBron, and not just with the easy baskets. So if LeBron doesn't have to use as much energy on offense, in theory,
right,
he can retain some of that energy to play on defense. Because one of the things that's happened during this run, especially since the All-Star break, LeBron has shown great energy at the defensive end. It makes such a big difference for the Lakers when they can get that from LeBron. And it's not in everything. I think he's got to moderate it. I think sometimes there's nights when he just doesn't have it at age 40. If they can make the load easier on LeBron offensively, and they can redistribute it and let Luka carry the most load offensively, it can help them holistically going forward.
Brian, you break it down so well. But what I saw was Luka's swag, and you start to see it more. You see the smile, you see the emotion.
Yep.
We track all of these stats. Malika, I want us to track
Swag stats?
his smile, his emotion, how many times he yells, because that's what I saw, and I think that's what we all see from Luka Doncic. We didn't see that the first few games. I don't care what anyone says. He was looking shell-shocked. I know for a fact he was shell-shocked when the trade happened and the days afterward, but now you're starting to see him come out awakened just a little bit, like Dave McMenamin said earlier. So I think we need some stats on this.
Swag stats. I like that. We should definitely put Stat Williams on the case. Before we move on here, Brian, obviously the Mavericks, they've suffered numerous injuries. It really debilitates the vision that Nico Harrison had when they wanted to put together this super-sized lineup. They have none of that here. But assuming full health, how would you see this matchup play out?
Well, so tonight it's such a disadvantage for the Mavericks because the Lakers' weakness is their interior size.
Right.
And the Mavericks are not equipped to handle it.
AD would go nuts in this game.
The next time they play them on April 9th, which is where we're going to be really determining seeding, that game could be vitally important for both of these teams. The Mavericks are hoping that they have a completely different game plan available to them, and they have a completely different game plan that they can deploy in the playoffs. They really made this trade not only as a rebuke of Luka, let's just be clear, that's what it was, but also as a belief that to win the West, you have to have size and defense, which the Lakers, they have perimeter size, but they do not have interior size.
And what's one team that everybody has in mind when they think of that size in the Western Conference, who they're contending against?
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City and the Denver Nuggets.
Oh, well, there's
Nikola
that one gentleman.
Jokic.
Yes.
Fellas, there's few things that three-time MVP Nikola Jokic hasn't done so far in his career. Last night, it was one of them here. Nikola Jokic came out early, ready to distribute here, legs. He would have 7 first-quarter assists that resulted in 15 Nuggets points, Tim.
Yeah, and he comes out that way some nights. He often can have a slow first quarter in terms of shots, but this is what he does so well. Immediately picks his head up and makes the game so easy for everybody around him.
And then in the third quarter here, more passing from Jokic with the rebound off the miss here, and then a long 75-foot outlet pass here to Aaron Gordon, Brian.
Oh my gosh, and so easy. Just let him walk into the three. I don't think Rick Carlisle was happy about that effort there with Mr. Toppin.
Yeah, I just got to take one more look at that one. And then in the fourth quarter here, CHE, he loves it. Jokic finding Christian Brown here inside for the easy layup here. And then less than a minute later, Jokic, he's sitting at 18 assists. Watch him here, though. A little handoff there to Michael Porter Jr. Even though he put it on the ground, that's going to be an assist for Jokic. 19 assists. The Nuggets win 125-116. Here's Michael Malone.
I think the most remarkable thing is not just the 19 assists, but the satisfaction and joy that Nikola gets from making his teammates better. He'd be happy getting 19 assists, no points, and us winning than any other superstar that I've ever come across. And that speaks to who he is. He's a humble person and understands that this whole thing is always much bigger than the individual. It's the collective.
Jokic's 19 assists are tied for the second most in a game by a center in NBA history. In fact, dating back to 1968, Wilt Chamberlain is the only center with more assists in a game than Jokic had last night. Just KC took a 24-point lead with 10:50 left in this game. Minnesota forced the Thunder to miss 17 of 19 three-pointers on their way to the fourth largest fourth-quarter comeback in the play-by-play era. And one of the key players in last night's rally, the Timberwolves' Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is joining us now. Thank you so much for stopping by our show.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
But we're excited to dive into this game because down 24 in the fourth quarter, you guys found a way, and you did it with Anthony Edwards on the bench. What was the mentality inside the huddle for you as you were trying to make this comeback?
Just kind of like what we talked about earlier, just for me not wanting to be embarrassed, especially playing against Shea. For us, I just wanted to make it a game, and my thought process was just play hard, chip away at this lead. If we're not going to win, at least make it worthwhile for us. So watching the young guys come out, be aggressive, me just trying to get everyone to play harder. I remember being super vocal every timeout, damn near screaming. Everyone was kind of just calm. I probably looked like a crazy man, but for me, it was just wanting to compete, and then competing turning into winning.
That would have been me, because I'm one of the most competitive people that I would have been like, come on, we got to do this. But at what point did you realize this wasn't just a nice story that you guys were putting in the effort, that you were going to complete this and win?
It was a timeout, and I looked at the score, and I was trying to figure out if it was updated or not. And Jalen Clark had made a comment saying, if we get 2 stops, we can crack this under 10, and we can win this game, and we can make it a game. And I said, oh, shoot, you're right. So after that, that's when I went to hyperdrive again, just trying to be vocal, talking to TJ, who was magnificent, getting downhill, playing with aggression, being the best version of himself.
Yeah.
And I told him, I need you to be more aggressive, especially if they're going to put the big on you and use your speed, set screens. Jaden and Nas have been amazing since everyone's been out with injuries. So just continuing to put the battery in their back to keep going.
I love that. And then, speaking of stops, the game-sealing moment was when Anthony Edwards capped it off with that block. Can you just walk us through that play from your vantage point? What did you see?
We knew they were going to shea, and we knew that we had to get the ball out of his hands. The way the game had went, we've been double-teaming him for the past maybe 24 minutes.
Right.
And so we knew he wasn't just going to accept the double team and try to get off it and leave it up to somebody else. So it was tough for me. I had blown the assignment of trying to keep him in front, trying to get the double, get the ball out of his hands, but Ant was just himself.
Right.
You know, stepping up in big moments, whether it's offensively or defensively, that's what he does. And he saved us.
Yeah, well, give yourself some credit, though. 21 points off the bench in that win. Like I said at the beginning of the segment, a key part of this comeback. What was working for you offensively?
Letting the game come to me, being aggressive. The night before, I built some confidence, and I felt like I understood their scheme and how they wanted to play me, and the emphasis that they were putting on Ant, emphasis they're putting on Nas. And so for me, it was just to continue to be aggressive. Part of wanting to win and competing for winning helped drive the success that I had, but my mindset was just keep hooping and one possession at a time.
I gotta tell you, my favorite subplot of this entire game is that you and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you're cousins. And he told me there's plenty of trash talking. So, I mean, after this game, do you shoot him a text? You letting him know on the court?
I didn't rub it in. We're even right now in the series, so that's all that matters. I couldn't let him go up 2 games just for the summertime, what it's like going back, playing against him, working out with him and stuff like that. So for me, it was just making sure we won this game so I can keep it within arm's reach so that this lead doesn't get too ahead in the family series.
In the family series, I love that. He's told me he wanted to face you guys in the postseason last year. What did he tell you about that?
Now, we talked about it. We talked about it after the loss in Dallas. He just sent me a text. He was just like, man, I want to be the one knocking you guys out in the conference finals. And it would have been an amazing story, honestly. I can't imagine how many of our family members would have been there.
Right, the tickets.
Yeah, so hopefully this year we get another chance to meet them. And when we get our guys back and everyone gets right and we start gelling the way we should be, and they've been doing great all season, so I'm excited for it.
And then that's when, whoever wins the playoff series.
Oh, that's all that matters. That's worth 2.
That's
worth 2.
That's when
regular season's cool, but playoff series, that's worth 2.
And that's when the real